Welcome back to 90s Movie Classics. This is Tim.
This is Andrew.
And today we are talking about The Craft. 1996. The plot basically consists of Sarah, played by Robin Tunney, comes to a new school after what we later discover was an attempt on her own life. She meets their three outsiders, Nancy, played by Fairuza Balk, Bonnie, played by Neve Campbell, and Rochelle, played by Rachel True. They are, I guess, wannabe witches, you might say, but they spot that Sarah seems to have some real powers. They get her into the group. They do all sorts of witchy stuff, including casting various spells and curses and the like. Everything seems to be going swimmingly, but as these things do, power goes to Nancy's head. She goes evil, and nasty things ensue. Does that summarise the plot pretty accurately?
I think that covers it without giving away too many spoilers. I think that sums it up pretty well.
Okay, so this was my choice. What did you think?
I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed it significantly more than my expectations.
Interesting.
I think I enjoyed it more than, my memory of originally enjoying it. It was slightly different tonally than I remembered, in a good way, in a way that perhaps stood up better through the years. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I commented that I thought it would be a bit more horror-y than we thought when we were talking on the last podcast. I'm not sure if that was strictly true. It wasn't particularly horror-y in the sense of being scary or gory, but there was some quite serious issues going on. There was obviously the suicide attempt. There was they all had pretty sad stories. Obviously, Rochelle had racism.
There was an attempted rape in there.
Yep.
There was a blade at someone's throat.
Yep.
The skin disfigurement.
Yeah, the skin disfigurement.
I had that as well. Quite intense themes.
Yeah, and Nancy's sort of awful home life with her abusive father-in-law. So I thought it was quite, maybe not so much horror, but quite dark and serious.
Yes. I would concur with that. Clearly spoke to a generation, and I think was perhaps an early feminism element in there as well. I thought. Turns out my partner was a big fan and is still a big fan, and I kind of understand why. I think it used its teen stars as a vehicle to say something, and as a result, it maybe stood up a little bit better than it might have if it had just been like silly fluff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I basically agree. I thought it was, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very much a movie in which there was lots of really great moments, lots of really great elements to it. Possibly when we get to the negatives, I thought there was something that didn't necessarily come together as a cohesive whole, but I have plenty of positives to talk about. So shall we start there?
Let's do that. I probably would start with some really good lines. There was some really good, the bitches of Eastwick. Mm-hmm. Again, is that where that's from? Because I've quoted that for the last, it would seem, 30 years. And is that original to The Craft? Because it was like an old friend coming home.
Yeah, I don't know. I suspect it is, but if not, someone will write in and tell us.
Charmed theme song before Charmed was a nice touch. Oh. The Smiths song, I think it's How Soon Is Now.
Did not pick that up
the theme
at all.
song from Charmed. Okay. I thought that there was some quite clever scenes where they make Skeet carry the books.
Yep.
That was quite clever. There was a line about not being white trash, which was super funny. The face change scene, I thought was, I'll get to it also in my negatives, but I thought it was a bit iconic, the face change scene. I remembered almost nothing, but I did remember that scene because it stood out. And then I thought there was some quite good, sort of freaky, scary bits more towards the end. Like when it turned getting out of control, some of it was quite effective and quite scary.
Yep, I agree. I think one of the most enduring lines being, "We are the weirdos, mister." In fact, that was one of the only lines that survived into the sequel, which we will not discuss as it was freaking awful, but... Similarly, the scenes at the end, quite a lot of good-looking scenes, like where all the rats and insects and snakes, I thought that was very effective. I mean, I thought some of particularly the scenes at the start when they were developing the characters, were really quite traumatic in a sense, particularly the Neve Campbell storyline with the scars. I found, and look, I am bad with medical stuff in both movies and real life, but when she was getting I'm not sure if it was the surgery, but the needles in her scars, and she was crying, and when she was saying, "Take my scars," I was tearing up. I thought that was really quite
it was your George moment, wasn't it?
That's right. I mean, the scenes where Christine Taylor was losing her hair,
yep,
I found them really quite disturbing. And in fact, funnily enough, I've had a recurring nightmare about pretty much exactly that thing, and I wonder if it came from The Craft.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, so it is.
In fact, it's just something I wanted to tell you about.
And interestingly, we never found out what happened about that. It never made clear whether she ever got her hair back or if she just had to wear wigs for the rest of her life.
Faded away. Yes, yeah. I think Christine was robbed actually. I thought she had presence, and was playing against type, a type that was later established, and then just vanished.
Yep. Although possibly one of the most shocking lines I've heard in all the movies that we've done. You must know what I'm talking about. When Rochelle, who is the black character, saying to Christine, "Why don't you like me? What is it about me? Why are you so mean?" And Christine Taylor, "Maybe I just don't like negroids."
I heard that and had the same reaction. I was like, they don't say that in movies.
My jaw was on the floor. I was like, can you say that even in 1996? Apparently so.
Edited retrospectively, but, we hated her as a result. Really hated her as a result.
Exactly.
I thought the ending was really strong.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there's a good last. The Fairuza Balk on the bed was a great last scene. The "relax, it's only magic" line. I thought it finished strong.
Yep, I would agree. I thought the finale was quite exciting. It built it up quite well. And this is probably a bigger topic, but it was nice to see a relatively restrained movie. Their powers were not that powerful at the end of the day. I mean, able to levitate a bit, made a few illusions. That was about the extent of it. Looking now at, compared to the Marvel era where that sort of thing is...
Which is a fundamental flaw in some of those movies, because if there's no limit to the power, there's no rules, so therefore no fear.
Exactly. But as a result, when they actually did start coming out with some cool powers, that actually worked really well. Let's talk about the individuals, because I think this is where we may or may not disagree. I'll be interested to hear. But I thought by absolute mile, the high point was Fairuza Balk. Absolutely stand by my 1996 obsession. Thought she was a legend. So was easily the best performer in the movie. Made the movie. Hero. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
Yes.
I need to formally fall on my sword. I was wrong. But it was daylight between Fairuza and the next most interesting of the four.
Oh, thank goodness.
She was a genius. Really, really, really good. Really, in fact, I actually, we'll get to some of our negatives. I thought there was a bit of a chasm in charisma and interest between Fairuza, who dominated the screen, and the rest.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I thought Neve Campbell was really good, although, again, we'll get to the negatives in a sense. I thought her storyline was not... Her pre-Magic storyline was really interesting. Her post-Magic storyline was a bit of a nothing. Yep. And Rachel True was fine, who played Rochelle, but, again, compared to the mighty Fairuza, was just swimming in her shadow. Although I will say, I did a bit of research on Rachel True. She hasn't done an awful lot, although she's continuing to work, but she has been in Sharknado 2, the second one, and the masterfully named Sharknado, Heart of Sharkness.
Oh,
genius, right?
Oh, wow. I've wasted my non-acting career by not getting a gig in that one. Also, actually, it brings to mind a correction from our preview show of The Craft. We said Fairuza had been in End of Days. It was Robin Tunney that was in End of Days.
Yes, indeed.
So, I don't know why I confused them, since they're completely different.
Because, Fairuza, I think, went on to do, The Island of Dr. Moreau, American History X.
Okay, yes, recall that.
Then Waterboy, then Almost Famous. In 2000, and she's continuing to do things, but not an awful lot after 2000 that I knew of. Before
we get on some negatives, maybe just a few sort of observations. Just that slightly earlier than some of these other movies. As we've reviewed these teen movies, we've seen a definite change from the early to mid-90s to the late 90s. And I thought this was notably earlier 90s. Smoking was still bad girl.
Oh, yeah.
If you had a nose piercing, you were a rebel. It was a little bit less Hollywood smoothed over. Like they had a few more original ideas rather than just borrowing from the one before. So I thought it was an interesting touch there.
Yeah, I did love the 90s-ish, the 90s nature of it, where I think it was the very first day of school. heads out, doesn't tell anyone, doesn't tell her parents where she's going, stays out until like midnight, and she's already snogging Chris, the Skeet Ulrich character, by the end of the night. It just felt so brilliantly 90s. The
bit of beach that they film, that is straight from The Usual Suspects and possibly also from She's All That.
Is that right?
It must be a bit of LA beach. That there's a particular set of rocks there, and the scene that they use directly from The Usual Suspects, the scene where they find the body of Fenster, it's the same shot. Huh. So, like, I just thought that was a bit slack. But anyway, get some more beach people.
Seriously.
Why does it say Gustav Klimt on the wall in the bathroom? Gustav Klimt is a painter, and his name was written in the wall in the bathroom.
Oh, I did not notice. Did you attempt to Google this?
I did not, but I thought you would know. I was expecting you. How thorough was your research?
I'm sorry.
Okay? Step up.
I have absolutely no idea.
And the other classic, the third movie that we reviewed with a ridiculous dollar figure that's not stand-up, when they got $175,000, and they chucked an enormous party, bought a penthouse, and lived rent-free forever.
I know, that was amazing. That was a great scene, actually, when they discover that after Fairuza, we think, kills the father-in-law, and then they're all sad, and it's like, you get $175,000, and just the laughing, the celebrating, and as you say, then cut immediately to this top-floor penthouse apartment that they bought for their $175,000. Yes.
I did have some negatives, though. What did you have?
I'll start with the one that you're probably predicting. Robin Tunney may well be a nice person, but I didn't get it at the time, and I just don't get it now. Just really lacks a degree of charisma. I didn't dislike her, but I certainly didn't like her. And it didn't matter so much, I guess, at the first half, because she was supposed to be a bit of a drip. But then, as the movie went on, I found she just became a bit annoying, and then because of that lack of charisma, when she was supposed to be the bad girl, superpowered witch at the end, I just didn't think it worked. And really, look, by that stage, I was going for Fairuza all the way. You know, I could objectively see that Fairuza was evil and Robin Tunney was good, but she was just so much more interesting. I was just happy for Robin to fail, and for the sequel to be Fairuza Balk. She's back.
I can see what you're saying. I thought she was a bit vanilla. Not perhaps one thing or the other. I did think inappropriately old for a high school character. Like, I don't know what age she is. I could go back and research that if I put effort in.
Yep.
But didn't strike me as 17 or whatever age you are in the US in your final year of school. But minor thing. I agree. She didn't really do it one way or the other. I thought she was fine but forgettable.
Yeah.
I think. Tell you what, who didn't stand up well though, Skeet.
Skeet.
Like, especially as a football player. I love Skeet in Scream.
Yep.
I mean, maybe Skeet's material he didn't have much to work with, but I thought he was forgettable.
Yeah. Well, really, I mean, because Scream actually came out that same year.
Is that right?
Yeah. So both 96, but Craft came out first. So yeah, Skeet, as you say, you watch that and you go, oh, that guy's not going anywhere, and then suddenly 6 months later he's a
mega
king
star
of Hollywood, and then he in fact didn't really go anywhere after that. But still.
Interesting theme, actually. Not a single likeable male. And not a problem, but interesting, all of them were horrible. Yep. All of them. Even the stepdad was, for some reason, wasn't a very good stepdad, or stepdad, whatever it was. Again, quite ahead of its time, in a way. But
yeah, briefly getting back to Skeet, the fact that he just followed the tradition of 90s jocks by just being flat out evil for no reason. There's like absolutely no reason, he's just evil, because that's what jocks are.
That's what they do.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we know this. The 90s taught us this.
Exactly. I mean, much like
there's a jock coming around the corner, run. Okay.
Exactly. I mean, much like the Christine Taylor as well. That's what she is.
What else didn't really work for you?
Actually, one thing which I think you foreshadowed earlier, the special effects were a bit funny. Some of them worked really well, and others were very dated. And it's funny because I think that back at the time, the special effects were actually actively a thing that they were advertising, as in it was particular the morphing effects. I mean, the ones that worked quite well was when I think, as you said, Robin Tunney made herself blonde and made herself look like someone. I thought those parts actually looked quite good. Some of the others looked terrible, like notable mentions.
The terrible papier-mâché skin on Neve Campbell. Looked ridiculous. It was plastered on paper-mâché, I thought.
Yeah, I actually had not thought about that one. I was more thinking...
the blonde hair was clearly against the green screen, to the point that her face went green when it went on. I don't know if my DVD or whatever I watched it on was old, but the whole colour changed. But anyway.
Yeah, and when Fairuza's fingers turned to snakes,
yeah,
I just thought it just looked ridiculous, because it actually made no real sense in the context of the movie, and I think it was there just to show off the special effects, when it was just flat clothes on the ground.
Right.
And then it turned out that it was Robin Tunney hiding there, and she sort of morphed into a physical person. It just looked absolutely terrible, and I'm almost certain that was considered really like a big thing that people were talking about. So yeah, it really pushed it a little bit too far. But I mean, at the time, I think everyone was very impressed. But so
when she walks on water and grows 3 feet taller.
Yeah,
that was the plastic sharks up on the beach.
Oh yes,
they were. I've seen them in science class. Okay? So like that was. Let's be kind and say it was variable, inconsistent.
I think that's fair. And this one's, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like the movie didn't make sense. And I think I probably wouldn't have even thought about it this much if I hadn't been making this podcast, but I kept trying to put it together and as to what exactly, why I wasn't thinking it was an absolute classic. And I think it's something to do with the fact that I couldn't quite make sense of all of the motivations and just all of this good versus evil stuff. A few examples. Totally get the Nancy, Fairuza Balk character being overcome by the power of the witchy stuff. I get that. But why did that cause her to take it out on Chris the jock and ultimately kill him? I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, okay, I get there was some history there, but that seemed a little over the top, or just a bit, surely she's got better things to do with these newfound superpowers. And I mean, similarly, I guess it wasn't completely clear to me. They were all fundamentally good people at the start, as far as I can understand it. And clearly, Fairuza was the more damaged of the group, and so it made her a bit more crazy than the others. But then, what I didn't get was why suddenly the other two were evil at the end as well. Like in the big finale, like, hang on, what? How have they gone evil? And why do they suddenly have powers? And
I did not really understand their character arc.
Yeah.
I understood the Robin Tunney character arc. I understood the Fairuza one, but I couldn't. Were they good? Were they bad? Were they good but regretful? Were they bad but got caught? I had a similar thing. The story does not make a bunch of sense.
And particularly because the very final scene, they're sort of evil bullies. You know, when they had that final confrontation with Robin Tunney and they're like real bitches to her, and I'm going, wait, so hang on, have they now become evil properly? Is that what's happened? I didn't quite understand that whole thing. And similarly, I guess, the Neve Campbell storyline, up until the point where she lost her scars, was really quite moving. After she lost her scars, it's just a little bit weird. I mean, as far as I can tell, her big crime was being a bit flirty and a bit body positive, and just got completely slut-shamed by Robin Tunney about it. Like, okay, is this quite as feminist as we think? I guess maybe this is 90s feminism.
Yeah. Yep, no, something similar. Also, the moment where the movie turned was they found the sharks. Why were they so worried at the shark moment? This was the moment where things suddenly got real, man.
Yeah.
And I couldn't work out what had happened, which suddenly meant that they'd crossed the point of no return.
I mean, they never really explained it, but they'd called the spirit of nature or something.
Indeed, yeah.
And so I guess I interpreted it as, well, the spirit of nature was such a disruptive process to bring the spirit of nature into the real world that it caused all these deaths.
Okay.
Yeah.
That could be it. Didn't jump out at me.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I did get the impression there was a lot of things that they thought, hey, this will look really cool, and found ways to fit it in.
Yep.
I mean, for example, I didn't really get, one of my favourite parts was where they had all the snakes and the bugs and everything, but I mean, why? Like, what was the concept there? I mean, I think the suggestion was that she had witchy powers but didn't realise it, so mistook it for mental illness, but somehow seeing a bunch of snakes and bugs was part of her mental illness, part of what she thought to be mental illness. But that doesn't really explain how then that came up in the big finale. I just suspect someone thought it would be really awesome to have heaps of snakes and bugs, let's just put it in there.
I found the natural witch bit a bit difficult, actually. Like, we talked about one of the good things was their powers were reasonably defined. When they did the chanting Circle of Four thing, they cast a spell, if you want to call it that, produced an effect, and they produced the effect. Whereas her, it was a bit rubbery what she could and couldn't do, and what was this historical power that attracted them, except for her, like, spinning a pencil on the point or something or other. That was a bit grey for me and a bit difficult to... Yeah, not super clear. So I think because they didn't fully define it.
Exactly. This is a harsh way to describe it in total, but it's a bit of style over substance, I think. It was
style rather than substance.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, I thought, and quite stylish, I thought.
Yes.
Quite stylish, but yes. I understood the reason why it's not regarded as a timeless classic. I stand behind the fact that it exceeded my expectations a bit. It was more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yep. And so, if we now talk about, could it be made today, or how is it aged, and could it be made today?
I mean, they're making lots of witch movies at the moment, so clearly there is still a demand for today. Interesting that the occult was clearly something they were trying to tap into, sort of the zeitgeist of the time. That hasn't gone away.
Yep.
So I can definitely see them making the movie today. The problem would be that they would struggle to define the limits of the powers. Would they be disciplined enough that they would make it specific abilities and scenes, or would it just be, you can go like Storm in Marvel and, change world climate kind of thing?
Agreed. I definitely think it could be made today, but they would have to be careful. And as I said, I did watch the 2020 Craft Legacy, and it was just horrendous. I don't think that's necessarily an example. That was just bad filmmaking. I think it could be made well by the right person. But so I think it could definitely be done, and witches are definitely in. And look, the themes of teens not fitting in and isolation,
is still very valid.
Mental illness and all of those sort of things are
very, everything very would be on TikTok if you did it today. So,
absolutely.
They would also have to find a Fairuza substitute, because I do think part of the strength of the movie was that she carried some of it. So if they were going to redo it, not to put too fine a point on it, they could do better than Robin Tunney, but they would have to find a Fairuza, and they don't grow on trees.
They do not. Will we watch it again? Yes.
I will.
Yeah.
I'll watch it, not tomorrow, but other than the fact my partner will make me watch it. But no, I would watch that again. I probably don't need to watch it again this year, but I will. I would be interested to see it again, see how it's staged in a few more years.
Yeah.
I do have to think someone will make another crack at making something like it, though, because it's an enduring theme, so they'll wait for the legacy one to pass into the background a little bit, and someone will have another go.
Yeah, correct. In the last podcast, I could have sworn there was an actual TV series being made of it, but I think that turns out not to be true, but there should be. They should make a TV series of it. Interesting
question how they would deal with the intense themes, though, because if they're really going to go with some of those themes, it has to be quite a hardcore movie. You can't be having kids in, and you can't play light on some of those things. If you're going to raise those topics, you need to raise them seriously. So it would be quite dark today. Maybe it's an SBS Viceland thing or something or other.
Could be. Anything else to say about the craft? We haven't actually mentioned the director at all. I feel we should give him a shout out. Andrew Fleming. I had not heard of him at all. The Craft seems to be his best known movie. He's still doing stuff. He's doing various TV. Funnily enough, his directorial debut is a 1998 horror movie, Bad Dreams, which I don't.
98 or 88?
Must be 88. I wrote down 98, but it must be 88, which I only know because I think it must have been rated R, because I was a big horror movie fan, but I never got to see it.
Devo.
Because it was rated R, and so, and I've never gone back and watched it.
And now you're devastated because it doesn't fit the definition of 90s classic.
I know, tragic. He then made a comedy romance called Threesome with Lara Flynn Boyle and Stephen Baldwin.
Seen that.
Any good?
I recall, I quite liked it.
Yeah. And also, I didn't see this, but his last big movie was Dick in 1999, the one with Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams. Something to do with Richard Nixon.
Yes, no, never watched it, even though it was right in type.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I didn't watch it. Probably turned over by the title. But
indeed. Well, I think that is the end of The Craft.
Indeed.
What have we got next?
Well, it's interesting that you raised the director last thing, because the 1998 movie is by a director that we have a complicated history with.
Interesting.
It is Snake Eyes, directed by Brian De Palma.
How interesting.
So Brian has been responsible for, I would say, one of my top 10 movies of all time, The Untouchables.
Yep.
And I would say a couple that Tim has in his top 20 or 30. Carlito's Way.
Absolute masterpiece, yep.
The First Mission Impossible.
Yes, brilliant.
And also, honourable mention to Scarface.
Yes.
Which is a complicated movie, but entertaining, no doubt about it. And actually, not so famous, but one called Casualties of War, which had Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn in it, I think, which was very good. Then he had the sort of less successful Bonfire of the Vanities with Bruce Willis, which was generally regarded as not very good, I think. But the one that Tim and I know him from in all the wrong ways is Mission to Mars.
Oh, don't say it. Don't bring that up again.
Truly, did it kill our 90s television viewing? Like, did it kill 90s classics? In that, like, we got there and we, like, burned up our cinema pass and, like, you know, went to the pub instead.
I was so obscenely excited about Mission to Mars. I did not stop talking about it before it came out. Did not stop talking about it. Talked it up to everyone who would listen. Went into the cinema with all of my friends and just walked out and just went, what was that? That was... People still remind me of it to this day, how excited I was about it before and how deeply unexcited I was about it afterwards. So, but look, to be fair, he has done enough that his legacy will not be totally tarnished by Mission to Mars. Everyone can make mistakes.
Well, let's see where Snake Eyes fits in on this.
Yes.
So Snake Eyes, 1998, Nick Cage. Nick Cage's second appearance on the podcast. Friend of the podcast, one might say. Hotter than hot. His 4 movies before this, Leaving Las Vegas, won an Oscar. The Rock, got reviewed by Andrew and Tim in the 90s podcast. Con Air, will be reviewed by Andrew and Tim in 90s Classics at some point in time. Face Off, may have to be reviewed as well for different reasons. And City of Angels, which holds an unusual title as a watchable rom-com. Yeah. Or romantic drama. So, could not have been hotter going in.
That was an extraordinary run, wasn't it?
It was quite the run. We had Gary Sinise, B-list star, but absolutely nailed on character actor in all kinds of things. And Louis Guzman, seen in a variety of things, and Carla Gugino, whom I was a big fan of.
Oh, I know you were.
Just coming after season 1 of Spin City, and just about to explode. That explosion never quite happened, but nonetheless, I thought she was super likable. I loved it. I loved it at the time, and I have a strong feeling you did not.
I remember really, really actively disliking it. I don't recall why or indeed what it was really about. I remember a scene at a boxing match, which might have been the opening scene or something, or maybe the finale.
Briefly, it is Nick Cage. I've done it again. Nick Cage, corrupt cop. Can't give away too many spoilers in case the fans want to go watch it. And it's moral questions for Nick the corrupt cop around a boxing match. And interestingly, it has a potentially awesome, potentially gimmicky scene at the middle where it is one camera shot for like the first 11 minutes or something rather like that.
Which I think what I remember.
Yep, which I think was a bit of a flourish and considered a bit try-hard. It actually, I assumed it was a bit of a bomb because it's kind of sunk without a trace. But it cost $70 million and made $100 million. So it made a profit, and $100 million is not nothing back in 1998. I loved it. Although, it's the kind of movie that I loved, and I've now not watched in 20 years. So, it is possible, but I will have more conflicted feelings. I love a choice which challenges you, Tim, and I feel you'll be challenged.
I will be challenged. Can it be as bad as Mission to Mars? I seem to think at the time it was a challenger, but having said that, I really don't remember what it was I disliked about it, or what. Maybe I was just in a bad mood that day. I don't know.
Well, it's going to be interesting because it is neither teen, it is not horror, it is not. And maybe this was the thing. Maybe it struggled to find an exact audience.
I was going to ask, is it action? I mean, is it an action movie?
No, it's a thriller, maybe. A dramatic thriller is maybe a closest movie. There is action scenes, but it is not an action movie. I mean, for me, it was a powerful character-led piece. You got to look out for Gary Sinise in a couple of different scenes.
Yep, I do love the Sinise.
And the mighty Nick Cage foreshadowing his later overacting, like just overacting a little bit. But I'm fascinated to see what we both think.
Yeah, and sorry, when have you last seen it?
I reckon I've been 20 years. Okay. I definitely saw it a couple of times afterwards because I loved it. Yep. But it's not the kind of thing you kind of casually put on the background. And I don't think I've ever seen it like on late night TV. I don't think I've run into it on a streaming service.
I've never heard anyone mention it.
No, so why is that? Why has it sunk with like stone, basically? So
I mean, look, I think I know, but I may be proved wrong.
Excellent. Until next time. Until then.
Snake eyes. See you then.